Let's look at how inventory and fixed assets are enabled, handled in the system, and what the points of interaction would be with the different areas that you may choose to employ in your day-to-day operations. Starting with inventory, this is obviously, again, the number one ERP product in the world. So the inventory capabilities are going to be unsurpassable in terms of flexibility. So a nonprofit organization is likely to use a fairly small proportion of the total functionality possible. When I look at the inventory items, I'm looking at this in the tile view. So this is one of the areas where pictures make a lot of sense in terms of the kinds of things we might handle in terms of inventory. Obviously, you would have books and publications, and you can maintain lots of information about that. If I switch the view to a list view, we can see examples of inventory items we have in here. So if we look at, let's say, something that may be close to something you might have um, as an item. Now let's just look at the microscope. Main thing is to to get a sense for all the information that you can maintain about the inventory item. Again, the picture, the attachments, etc. I'm going to shut that down for now. On the inventory card here, we have the basic fields. We have lots of other fields that are possible. Just going to open this up. You can scan the ability to manage multiple units of measure, the ability to manage stock, non-stock, and stock type inventory, as well as service entry, which you probably will not be using. Tracking all the different quantities that we might have on order, on sales, etc. Managing multiple sales pricing issues. You can have different catalogs based on customer. You can have different pricing, etc. And if you choose to go full bore, you can actually have all your replenishment calculations as well as handle assemblies of inventory, which again, you're not likely to use. Again, more capability than you could ever imagine wanting to use. The integration points of inventory would be classic capabilities when we get into purchase invoice and I look at a transaction here. Let's just pull up one of my existing sample invoices in the system. Let's show less on the screen here so you can kind of see what's going on. And the main thing is as we're coding an inventory transaction, we can purchase inventory here. We can purchase against a GL account. And note that we'll be looking at fixed assets soon, but you can also post the acquisition cost to a fixed asset as you record the vendor invoice in the system. So as soon as we post an invoice, the fixed asset ledger would get updated, the acquisition cost would get updated, and then you'd be able to just start doing your depreciations on those fixed assets. So complete integration on the purchasing side to both inventory and fixed assets. On the sales invoice side, as you would expect, we can enter a sales invoice, and the things we can sell on a sales invoice are against a GL account, items of inventory, as you saw. We can also sell resources in the system. A resource would be a person's time or usage of a piece of equipment, and the ability to dispose of fixed assets is also built on the sales side of the equation. The other area where inventory would come into play potentially, we've touched on this a little bit, is in the jobs area. If you're using your construction projects, etc., and we're building a project and budgeting it or consuming uh, expenses against that, when we're setting up the tasks and the planning lines, let me find one that has a little more information on it. As we set up our budgets, we can again budget against resources. inventory items, and general ledger accounts, you can also assign the consumption of inventory as well as resources to the construction projects you might choose to manage using Business Central. Okay, so again, the main thing to emphasize is very unlikely that you're going to find anything lacking in the inventory capacity in Business Central. The challenge will be how to really focus on the key things that you need in your several different companies, because different companies may do different things. Now, of course, if we're integrating from your point of sale system, we may choose not to capture inventory detail in Business Central. That is purely a decision for you to make on whether you want to flow transactions to the inventory ledger, the item journals in the system, or you want to flow inventory transactions through purchase documents as well as sales documents if you actually want to book your sales invoices with the item information in the system. The advantage of using Business Central, obviously, to manage your entire inventory would be is that you can use the complete physical inventory, the different layers, the cost tracking, and not have to build that functionality in your external systems when you have an ERP system that completely handles every aspect of inventory that you could imagine. Let's quickly cover fixed assets, since you had asked for one scenario to cover both. In the fixed asset module, we already saw the integration points, but the way we set up a fixed asset is we assign numbers, and again, you have a 20-character alphanumeric string with a pre-existing numbering scheme if you choose, and these again are numbering schemes that you can define and set up and decide whether you want the system to always assign them or you want to manually assign a fixed asset number, and again, this will be per your business policy. Once we create a fixed asset, again, the kind of information, you can attach the asset to a person within your organization who's responsible for that asset. You have the ability to have multiple books. So this is a depreciated book. Most of our customers typically only have one, but you could set up multiple books for different purposes. And the posting groups here is where you connect your fixed asset group into your GL. So this is how we attach your acquisition inventory asset account, your accumulated depreciation accounts, all the different accounts you might have for gains, losses, disposables, maintenance expense, as well as your depreciation expense account. Minimally, you need those three accounts. These are optional features that you may choose to use or not use in the system. You notice here the book value. If I drill down on the book value, you'll notice that the amounts in the book value were updated through a purchase invoice. And then here's an example where we did an acquisition incremental transaction, but this is how the book value has been updated. And this purchase invoice came directly. If I navigate on this, you'll notice here's my posted purchase invoice where I acquired that fixed asset, and you notice I coded against the fixed asset number for the $100 acquisition cost. Okay, so once your fixed asset set up, you have other information that you can choose, obviously attaching it to funds in the system so we can track and allocate based on the funds and how the acquisition was funded. The maintenance information, which you can use to track who the vendor is who's responsible for maintenance, and this whole maintenance and insurance subsystem for tracking more detailed information on a fixed asset. Again, just as in the inventory case, our experience is that nonprofits maybe use 20 to 30% of the capacity that's provided by the fixed asset module in Business Central. So again, it's very unlikely that you're going to suffer from a lack of ability. After your assets are set up, you post your acquisition costs, then really all you do every month is you come in and you calculate depreciation. You would typically choose a period ending date and set up your depreciation coding. When you run your depreciation, it'll generate your general ledger entries. I'm going to go ahead and override these descriptions to match the date I'm picking, January 2020. And this is actually, I haven't run depreciation for all the months preceding this, but just to give you an idea of how simple this process is. And you choose a description in the numbering scheme. I'm just going to go, well, I'll go ahead and let it run for all assets. Again, if you wanted to run some partial assets, you could do it that way. Let's go ahead and press the OK button. And the system will go about and do the computations. And the computations will always be sensitive to what's already been done. Creates a journal with your depreciation expense, your offset entries, and once you review these, you just post them and it'll update your accumulated depreciation and your depreciation expense in your general ledger automatically. I'm going to delete these because I really don't want to accidentally run a depreciation for several years at once in our demo system. So let's just select these lines and go ahead and delete them out of the journal so nobody accidentally posts them. Okay, so that was a quick review of inventory and fixed assets. Hopefully that'll give you some food for thought on all the various ways you might use Business Central to improve your business processes over your current system.